What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith, comedian Sugar Sammy in the house. How are you, sir?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So you got a show coming up here in New York City in a couple weeks, but I want to wind it back. Take me back to your humble beginnings when you're first jumping into comedy. I've read that Eddie Murphy was your guy back in the day.
Yeah.
You watched Delirious, and that kind of hooked you. So
that's it.
How did it all start?
Yeah, there's those defining moments that you have as a kid, and for me, it was watching Eddie Murphy Delirious. My parents used to go to this Indian video store, and they used to rent cassettes for all the kids watching. Cassettes.
Yeah, do people know what a cassette still is, right?
VHS cassettes. So they used to rent all these Indian movies. And the guy who owned it had like a couple English movies. It was all illegal. It was like never original movies. It was all duplicated.
Underground.
Yeah, there were like 3 movies in each tape.
Oh my god!
You could return it when you want. It was like $1. And then he had a couple of English movies floating around, and I was like, oh, can we watch an English movie? You know, and my parents were like, okay, let's get whatever you want. I was like, well, this is the only one available. So took it home, watched it that day, and I think I watched it 6 times.
Wow.
And that was it. I was like, I'm in. I want to do what this guy's doing. Is this a job? How do I get this job? And then I remember even, late at night watching, staying up way past my bedtime. I have memories of watching Carson. And, my mom waiting for my dad to come back from work, because he used to have a store, so he used to close late at night. And I told my mom, I was like, are you watching this guy? Look at his opening monologue. I was like, are you allowed to do this? Look at these jokes. Is this allowed? What is this job? I want this job. So, ever since those times when I was a kid, that's what I've always wanted to do. And I've done, even when I've done everything else, to say, okay, well, this is the safe way to make a living. It kept calling me back, and every time I'd see a stand-up comedy show or a set on TV, it would just hurt because I knew I should have been doing that.
It was pulling you back.
It was pulling me back. It was like watching, the woman you're in love with be with someone else. It's like it like kills you.
I need her.
I need to be there. Yeah. So that's the earliest memory, and I was hooked. And I mean, ever since then, I think. The passion I have for this career and for this job is something that I can't deny. I have it all the time. Yeah.
No, it's awesome, and I think it's really interesting too because you have the thrill of stand-up comedy when you're there with the microphone, and the fear that comes into it as well. Yeah. So take me back to your first stand-up performance. What do you still remember about that night?
My first stand-up performance, my first official stand-up performance was, I was in college. We have something in Quebec called CEGEP. It's like something between high school and university. Okay, it's like a mini program to prep you for your university. And I was part of the Black Student Association. We didn't have a lot of diversity at my school, so I was pretty much the
poster child.
This is it. This is like the diversity we had. So I was part of the Black Student Association. We needed to raise funds for this association, and we're like, oh, let's throw a comedy show. And we couldn't afford comedians, and everybody was like, well, you're a funny guy. You're the class clown. You're always cracking jokes in the hallways. You want to put one together? So we put one together. We charged $3. 400 people came out. The pressure of that one, and that was my first gig, and I made the front page of the papers for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, because I offended probably everyone.
Everybody?
It was a Catholic college.
So you were just hammering out
everything. Jesus, the nuns, the resurrection, like everything.
Yeah,
everything.
I'm sure they really enjoyed that.
Yeah, exactly. You could see nuns walking out in the middle of my set.
But that's really interesting because with comedy, you have to take things head on.
Yeah,
right? You're not dancing away from those topics. So it must be really interesting doing comedy today because some people feel like there's certain topics you can't cover, but at the same time, comedians are supposed to expose certain things. So what's it like, especially with your tour now, what's it like crafting your style and your message?
I think it's we live in delicate times, but it makes it interesting as a writer because you have to be so much more, you have to be precise. You have to do your homework. You have to be a better writer today because it's not that the landscape has become sensitive. It's that audiences have become more demanding. They don't want the easy joke.
Right, they're a smarter audience.
They're a smarter audience. So because everybody has access to so much now, you don't just have 3 networks and they just feed you stuff. You have so many websites you could go on. People are consuming culture in different ways, and they can get whatever they want whenever they want. So all the best stuff rises to the top. So as a comedian, you better bring your A game when you're writing. And like I said, it can't be the easy joke. It's got to be, you could take on those topics. You could talk about race. misogyny, homophobia, but it's got to be better.
Right.
It's got to be written in a way where audiences go, that guy did his homework.
Right, it needs to be an intellectual conversation that's going to challenge you, push you beyond your limits a little bit.
And just funnier. I think the funnier it is, the more you can get away with.
Right.
So you just got to find that delicate balance of like, okay, it's racy, but the audience accepted it because it was funny and it wasn't just some statement thrown out in a lazy way.
It's not a corny joke or anything like that.
Exactly. It's the lazy writers who are getting the flack right now. Yeah. So.
And that's interesting because you're focused so much on the writing. You know, so many people in the audience are just focusing on the delivery and how people resonate with it. But there's so much build up to you just even creating a set.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that the writing was at the core of just being a great comedian?
I think since the beginning, as soon as I hit the stage, because you feel it.
Right.
You feel when an audience goes, wow, I laughed so hard and I didn't know I could laugh at that. You know? And there's certain topics that I bring up, and people are like, I don't know how you got away with it. And I was like, it took me days to just
navigate
through this, and months to work on it and really get it right, so that I could get this bit the way I needed to, even though it was controversial, even though if someone else just said these statements randomly, taken out of context, they'd get in a lot of trouble, especially in the corporate world today.
Sure. Yeah.
I had to do it in a way where I could get away with it, and I like that. For me, my favorite comedians have always been the ones you watch and you're like, oh my God, something dangerous is about to happen. What's it going to be? And then you have this laughter and this sigh of relief at the same time when it's funny, and the whole room goes, yeah, we're on board. This is funny. That's great. I mean, it's so controversial, but we're there. And I think, to me, that's the most interesting type of comedy.
No doubt about it. And you mentioned something before also just about how there's not only 3 networks anymore, that people are getting their stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
So how did you use digital platforms, social media, to just kind of get your brand out there? Because international guy, like you've been all over the world, but still, you still have to put in your time and get your reps. So how did you do it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting part of the comedy business now. And it needs to be tended to more and more. And people forget that, I think it's one of those things where you got to look at, I always look at, the art form, of course, first, but I look at the business side of it too.
Yeah,
and
you
have to look at it. And you have to say to yourself, this is an important part of my business that cannot be neglected, because this is the way to reach everybody now. This is the way I consume. I haven't, I don't turn on the TV much. Unless I'm going to watch live sports or the weather or the news. Even the weather, I'll get it on my phone.
Right. You can get everything on the phone. It's changed the game.
It's changed the game.
Yeah.
So how do I reach my audience? So a lot of it has become data analytics. A lot of it has become algorithms. A lot of it has become how do I target my audience and specifically reach them. It's a really exciting time to be a comedian and to be able to reach the audience that you want to, because before you had to depend on like 2 or 3 bookers who made or broke your career. And now you can be in charge of your career 100%.
Yeah,
Why not?
And you can do it anywhere also.
You can do it anywhere. You don't have to move to LA or New York. There are a lot of guys now internationally who are building careers from their hometowns and their home countries. There's a guy from Lebanon who's killing it right now, and he hasn't moved. Like there are guys in like the UK who are, drawing lots of eyeballs in Australia right now, but not moving. I sold out my tour in Chicago without setting foot in Chicago.
Wow.
Before I arrived there.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I got to I have shows in Toronto now. I have big shows in Toronto, and my whole team, we got together and we said, how do we market it? And we did it all digitally, and we're sold out. We haven't set foot in Toronto yet, and we're sold out 3 weeks in advance.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, I think it's exciting. I think that's an exciting thing, because you can reach people the way you want to, but you also can't forget that human touch. It has to be there. So I love meeting my audience after the show as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up, because comedy still needs that human touch.
Yeah.
And so people are still going to come out, because of course you can watch a comedy special on Netflix or on Comedy Central or whatever, but people want the face-to-face. And your style of comedy, you love playing with the audience. And I wonder for you, like when you're rolling up to the stage and you're looking at the audience for the first time, how much of it is just reaction and how much of it is, okay, I see a certain person, I want to pull a little bit on that. How do you kind of make that judgment in your mind?
I mean, look, I have my material, obviously, but I like also making making sure that every show is tailor-made to each audience.
Yeah.
So, every audience is different. They're their own beast. It's almost like an entity on its own. So you got to make sure that you adapt. And I like playing with the audience. I like talking to them. I like acknowledging that they're there and going, listen, I'm not just on autopilot.
Right.
This is not a show like every other.
It's not just fully scripted.
No, I'm present. I'm there with you. I'm ready to engage, And I like that contact, as well. And to me, I think the way that I pick who I'm going to talk to is I just throw questions out, and whoever starts answering, you know they want to participate.
Of course.
It's also not my job to put somebody on the spot who doesn't really want to be a part of the show. So you could figure it out real quick. You could read body language. That's one of those
Somebody
things.
curls up, you're like, all right, I'm going to stay away from that person.
You know when someone's like, no, please, I can't do this. You know? And you can tell when someone's like, hey, I want to be a part of the show. I had someone in Chicago the other day who just became like, he was like the star of the show, and he wanted to participate, and everything that came out of his mouth was funny, and I didn't even have to do anything. I was like, listen, I could leave you here with the mic. I'll go take a break.
I'm sure those are the best shows for you because it's completely organic.
Yeah,
you know,
those are the best because for me, it's like, you know, I know my material, but finding that exciting new thing every show for myself,
new and different.
Yeah, and building material from the audience and going, okay, I figured something out, you know, over here that's unique and that's never going to happen again.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Chicago, rich comedy history in that city.
Yeah.
What was it like selling out and playing there?
I love Chicago. I can't wait to go back. You know, for me, it's exciting because when you tour the states, every state is different. It has its own culture.
Absolutely.
It's like mini countries within a big country. You know?
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. So going to Chicago and discovering Chicago and its culture. And its audience was very cool. It reminds me a lot of Toronto, you know, but in the States. So no, I can't wait to go back. And it's a great hockey town. I'm a big hockey fan, so I had a lot to relate to whenever I'd meet people and make friends in Chicago. There's a lot we could talk about.
Definitely, yeah. They love their Blackhawks.
They love their Blackhawks.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you're coming back for Carolines in a couple weeks, and you've been there before. You're obviously hyped because you're headlining.
Yeah.
Describe that room to me compared to other rooms and what it means to you to be at Carolines.
Well, listen, it's a legendary room, you know. Like the names that play there and the names that play there now and the names that have played there historically are huge. And you know, it's like just to I was walking by, I was like, I can't believe I'm headlining here. When I was a kid, I'd go come to New York and I'd be like, I hope I can perform at some of these clubs one day, you know. And to see yourself up on the marquee, you know, it's like it's definitely it's exciting. And you know, as a Canadian kid growing up in Montreal, you know, you've always wanted to headline in New York and the big cities. You know, it's the mecca of stand-up. So to me, there's no better place, and there's no better place to come and rise to the occasion. I think it's one of the only headlining clubs in New York where they have headliners. I mean, everywhere else they have showcases. So.
Right.
It's fun. I love the staff there. I love the administration. I love all the people that book me there. You know, I've started developing friendships with them. So to me, it's like it's going to be my home in New York. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for people that haven't checked you out before and they're coming to Carolines, what can they expect?
You're going to be offended.
Let's just right off the bat. Let's just get that out of the way.
So I'm already putting the disclaimer out there. So no, it's definitely going to be racy. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a global perspective brought to America. I'm going to compare America to all the other places I've been to. And we're going to have a lot of fun together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So it's not going to be like a sermon. You know, like a lot of comedians sometimes love making it more about the statement than the funny. So we're going to have a great time. It's going to be fun. And yeah, and if you don't come, you're gonna miss out. You're gonna hear about it all year. So make sure if you're in New York or in the New York City area, you got to come see me at Carolines.
There you go. So you mentioned the Canadian scene before. I know the Just for Laughs Festival was a big part of your career. Just describe that for people that haven't been there, because you know Toronto's a great city, Montreal too, and then that festival has become iconic. So what is it like?
Listen, Just for Laughs Festival is the biggest comedy festival in the world, and growing up in Montreal and seeing it that close, you saw the big stars coming in every year, hosting it or having their own show, and it's gotten even bigger. It's getting bigger every year, and just to get it the first year when I got it in 2004, just to get my foot into the industry, it was huge for me. It was a big springboard for the rest of my career, and it got me on everybody's radar. And I think a lot of people strive to go and perform there because you're up there with the best. It's like the All-Star game for comedians. Totally. You're there with the best. So you're up there. The level is so high that you've got to rise to the occasion. You've got to make sure that you're there. Otherwise, it shows pretty quickly. So I like that festival because every time I see it, it reminds me that you know, there's some really great comedians up there, and that I got to keep working harder.
Yeah, it's such a competitive field, you know, and it really does challenge you to bring your A game. So who are some other people that you look to today that you just like what they're doing, whether it's just from their style, their business, you know, who are some people you like?
Well, listen, I think these days Kevin Hart, you can't really dispute.
Big time box office.
Big time box office. Big time selling arenas out. Has a great attitude. You could see he's like one of those guys who, you know, you just see him in an interview and you're like, wow, I want to be this guy's buddy. You know, like he's one of those guys.
Very engaging personality.
Very engaging personality. Has a great business sense. So there's something really great about him. I love Bill Burr. Bill Burr just makes me laugh so much.
Very authentic. He's another guy that's going to offend you too.
I love that about him. Bill Burr is like, you know, stand-up's Archie Bunker in 2019. I love Bill Burr's stand-up. I'm a big fan. I could watch Bill Burr for hours. Dave Chappelle, you know,
the OG.
Yeah, like, you know, you can't go wrong. Dave Chappelle is like a franchise comedian. This guy is one of those guys. I could watch him for like 6-7 hours and not get tired. You know, and you're even there through just some of the thoughts he'll have on stage. Like you know, sometimes it's not completely structured, but it's always amazing.
Right, he's working it out, but he has a route that he's getting back to.
And it's always tremendous, you know? Chris Rock, you know, so some of those classics, obviously, those guys who are like superstars in their field, and there's a reason they're at that level. And for me, I think those are the guys I look up to.
Awesome. Well, Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, me too.
Thank you very much. Tell the people when they can check you out at Caroline's.
Caroline's February 21, 22, 23, 5 shows. Make sure you come out.
All right. There you have it. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.